In episode 6, after putting the world back together, at least for the time being, Dream falls into a little bit of a depression. He heads to the park where he's visited by his sister, the Angel of Death. He told her that after he was captured, all he could think about was vengeance, and when he got it, it wasn't as satisfying as he thought. Meanwhile, his kingdom was falling apart. His tools were lost, so he had to go on a journey to find them, and he did. And now, he's more powerful than he's been in ages. And yet, he's not happy, because he enjoyed all of those quests, but now that they're over, he's kind of sad. But if he was looking for sympathy from his sister, he doesn't get it. Because she tells him, feeling sorry for yourself because your little game is over? That's pathetic. Get some balls and go find a new one. I mean, hell, you're as bad as Desire. No, actually, you're worse. She also rips into him because she feels like he's self-centered. But she has a job to do. So her and Dreams take off from the park and they start making their way around the city as she starts taking souls away from this world and sending them to hers. On the way, she lets them know that they did have one family dinner when he was away. Desire was in high spirits, but he figures that was probably because he wasn't there. Desire and Dreams don't really get along. Dreams asks if there's been any word from the prodigal, but Death says, no, still missing. They reach the first appointment of the day, and it's this old violinist. Death lets him say a prayer, and then she takes him. They start heading to the second appointment, and on the way, Dream tells his sister that when he was captured, they weren't actually looking for him. They were looking for her. And she looks at him and says, I know. They then reach the next appointment, and it's this guy on the beach. He drowns in the water, so Death ends up taking him, way before he's ready. Death and Dreams then start heading to the third appointment, and they start talking about how difficult their jobs are, each thinking the other's job is more difficult. Because Dreams could never do what Death does, and Death couldn't even think of doing what Dreams does, but they both like their jobs. But the third appointment is the most painful one of them all because it's a baby, an innocent baby who's no more than 6 months old. But as Dream and Death continue to make their way through the city, he just can't figure out why people fear death so much. Everybody knows it's coming, yet nobody wants to go with her, which makes her job difficult, but it also makes her so good at her job because she's there for all these people, comforting them the entire way. As they wrap up the day, she tells them that it used to be difficult because she used to look at this as she was doing all of it alone. But then she realized she wasn't alone. She had these people that she was dealing with. Maybe it'll help Dream if he looks at his job the same way, because he's not alone. Because at the end of the day, the whole family, Death, Dreams, Despair, Desire, they're there to serve the people. It isn't about quests or finding a purpose outside of the function, because their purpose is their function. They're there for the people. And what she realized through all of this was that she needed those people as much as they needed her. It's one of the reasons why Death shockingly has a sunny disposition. Dream ends up thanking his little sister for this reminder, and then the two go their separate ways. Because Dream had a meeting to get to. You see, way back in 1389, Dream and Death ended up going to a tavern. They overheard a guy named Hob talking a big game about how he wasn't scared of death, and how he just planned on not dying. It was that simple. Death and Dreams, overhearing this, thought this was pretty funny, and they actually had the power to make this happen. So Dreams walked up to him and said, if you don't want to die, fine, but you'll meet me back here in 100 years. And he figured in 100 years, Hob would be begging for death. But in 1489, he wasn't. I mean, first of all, he couldn't figure out how he was alive, and he couldn't figure out how Dreams was alive because Dreams never revealed his true identity to this guy. And he's a little concerned that he made a bargain with the devil, but Dreams assures him, I'm not the devil. I'm just interested in your experience. You live your life as you choose, and then on this day, in 100 years, we'll meet. That is, if you still want to live. And Hob absolutely wants to continue to live, because he loves seeing the advances in technology, like these fancy things called tissues. When they meet again in 1589, Hob's doing great. He's even been knighted. He's been making money all over the place, and what he's been doing is going away for a while and coming back as his, quote, son. But the best thing to happen to him in 100 years is he met a woman named Eleanor, and they had a child named Robin. It's safe to say that Hob is absolutely loving life, and he can't wait to see what the next 100 years holds. Dream does overhear a loud, boisterous guy in the corner, and he asks Hob, who is that guy? And Hob tells him, oh, it's some playwright named Bill Shakespeare. He's not very good, though. But Dream likes his enthusiasm, so he gets up from the table and he makes a deal with William Shakespeare. And that's why everybody knows the name Billy Shakes. Fast forward 100 years, though, and things have taken a turn for the worst. Hob has lost all of his money. He's down on his luck. He's looked at as a peasant. And this is finally the moment that Morpheus thinks Hob is going to want out. But instead, no. The exact opposite. Hob is convinced that the next 100 years will bring more fortune and prosperity, and he decides to live. And his gamble pays off, because by 1789, things have turned around for him. He meets up with Dream, and he gives him the update. He's making a lot of his money in the slave trade, and Dream doesn't agree with that. He thinks he should find another line of work because it's not right to enslave a man. Hob kind of looks at him cross-eyed and says, wait, now you're giving me advice on how to live my life? But Dream says, well, the choice is yours, but yeah, I am giving you advice. You shouldn't be doing that. And Hob does say that he'll reconsider the job. But then suddenly they're approached in the tavern by a woman and 2 guards. The woman is Lady Joanna Constantine. She tells him that there's always been this legend that the devil and a Jewish man meet in this tavern every 100 years. I mean, clearly she's wrong because neither of these guys are Jewish or the devil. But she wants the same immortality that they have, and Dream says no. So she tries to sick her guards on them, but Hob jumps up and attacks them, thinking that he has to come to Dream's aid. And that's when Joanna has a knife to his throat. But Dream pulls out some sand, and next thing you know, Joanna is having a complete nightmare. Hob asks Dream, what did you do to her? And Morpheus tells him she has old ghosts. I just showed them to her. The 2 men then leave the pub, and in 1889, they meet back up. The pub where they meet at is frequented by a hooker named Lushing Lou. At least, that's what they call her. Her other nickname is less flattering. It's the hospital, because that's where she sends most guys. Gonorrhea ain't fun, folks. Not that I know from experience. But when Hob mentions that he doesn't actually know her real name, Dream tells him it's Louise Baldwin. Her father was in the British Army and her cousin raped her, impregnated, and then deserted her. Hob looks at him astonished and asks, how did you know all that? You knew Lady Joanna, now you know Lushing Lou. You know everyone, don't you? Morpheus doesn't answer the question, but he does tell him, I saw Lady Joanna again. She undertook a task for me and succeeded admirably. The conversation then segues into why the 2 meet there every 100 years. And Hob's theory is that Morpheus needs a friend. He thinks he's lonely. And Morpheus gets really offended by that. He looks at him and says, don't dare suggest that I need your companionship. You know what? I guess we don't need to meet, and then I'll prove you wrong. Morpheus goes to leave the bar, and as he's walking away, Hob is yelling at him, I'll be here in 100 years' time, and if you're here too, it's because we're friends. But in 1989, Hob shows up at the bar. Morpheus does not. And it's not like Morpheus is intentionally standing him up. He was sitting in Burgess's basement, stuck. So by the time 2022 hits, he's 33 years late. And the bar that they frequented was bought out, and it's now an abandoned building. But Morpheus notices that there's a sign for a new bar. And when he heads there, there's Hob running the books because he bought it. When Hob looks up, he gives Morpheus a big, giant smile. And he tells him, you're late. Morpheus chuckles and says, it seems I owe you an apology. It's rude to keep friends waiting. The 2 friends then sit down and start catching up. But in the Desire realm, Desire is talking to another one of his siblings, telling whomever it is, maybe Despair, that their plan had failed. But that's okay, because they have a new one. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or 2.